good afternoon, everybody. This is Mike from MoEngage. So welcome to today's webinar on Lifecycle Engagement Strategies for 2021. So I'm Mike Barclay. I am the Director for Europe for MoEngage. And as you can probably hear from my accent, I'm based out of London. So if I speak too quickly or you don't understand anything, just put your hand up. There's a little raise your hand icon at the bottom, and I'll repeat myself, hopefully in a more easy to follow fashion. And of course, I have my colleague Raul alongside as well, who we partner with. So I'll let Raul introduce himself.
Hey guys, I'm Raul. Yeah, as Mike already said, we are partnering quite a lot together. So I'm from Customlytics, one of the co-founders. We are doing everything around app marketing consultants and also acting like an agency. And yeah, looking forward to run with you the webinar today, Mike.
So as Raul said, we've been partners for about 4 years now. And MoEngage is a customer engagement platform. And what we do is specialize in giving you a single view of the customer by unifying all your data from its various sources. And then with that single view, we give you the power to execute lifecycle marketing. So that can be a one-off campaign, or it can be a set of campaigns that orchestrate on a triggered basis. And all of this is underpinned with AI optimization and some deep analytics. So onto the topic. And what we're looking to talk to you about today is, Raul, next slide.
Sure.
The customer journey and how that life cycle works. So if we think about, when we think about life cycle marketing, it starts really where you have an idea or a product, but there's somebody out there who doesn't know about you at all. You don't actually know them. And over time, you're going to try to get them to come through into the funnel. So you have things like all the different steps from awareness, consideration, intent, right through to the point where they love you, they've got you tattooed on their arm, they talk about you in every pub, and they're real, true advocates. Now, those stages are not easy to achieve, but there are formulas that you can apply which help you to do that. And what we hope to do today, in the next half hour or so, is give you some inputs into those formulas. We will talk about the theoretical side of it, the planning side, and Raul will take you through that. And we will touch on some of the technical side, but this won't be a product presentation. You've not come to a demo. We'll talk to you about how products can help you with these things. Now, we both worked together for ages, so you don't need to worry about throwing us off. Ask us questions as you go through. I'm sure everybody gets Zoom fatigue. It's something big over in the UK, whereby sat through too many presentations where they can't speak. So we would welcome you to ask us questions as you go through. So we're going to kick it off by making you do something, which is a small poll. I want to ask you a very quick question, which would make sure you're in the right room, so to speak. So if you want to just answer this question, and we could then see which is the most common problem, and obviously make sure we touch on that as we go through the presentation today. So just give you a second. Has everybody finished? Multiple choice, no wrong answers. Cool, and hopefully someone's going to magically give me the answer in a moment. Yep, and it's come out as a tie. So the tied answers are getting unified customer profile data across systems. Good, but we're definitely going to talk about that. And the other one is retaining customers' inability to personalize the customer experience across all channels. So retaining customers and the inability to personalize customers across all channels. And again, we're going to talk about that. So we're in the right room, which is a good thing, because now I can hand over to Raul. We'll start.
Perfect. I will introduce you to some of our frameworks that we built up. Actually, the one that we try to channel everything in. That's the marketing master map. You will get a sneak peek on it. Obviously, these slides are, even with your biggest screen, potentially a bit too too small. But we will dive into each of the sections. What we have built is a marketing master map. So we were looking on the customer, so the end customer that you want to acquire for your app, for your website, for your service. And we're looking on which kind of steps one of those users are going through. And we try to build up there a kind of framework that is covering all the steps out of the view of a user and touching then different areas. So so that we are getting a full picture on where the user is going through, making sure that you have something actionable on your hands, where you can always look in which kind of communication strategy I should choose, in which stage of a user, which kind of technologies I need, what kind of channels I have to look at, and so on. That are the four sections that we will guide you through today, and touch them all a bit, not in detail. In the end of the webinar, you can also fully download this map so that you can get everything also printed out or directly on your screen to zoom a bit in. We will obviously zoom in for every of the chapters. So first one that we will look at is the customer journey. And for this, here we have a slightly bigger picture on the customer journey. No fear, I will now dive into each of the sections. So we have the demand generation, we have the conversion generation, and the relationship management, where Mike is kicking in a lot, and the propagation, where your users are actually doing your job sometimes to acquire new users. And now we can go a bit deeper into the demand generation. There we have three different phases in the demand generation. The most one that you all know, the awareness phase. So you want to make sure that the customer know your product, that this is available, that your brand exists at all before they are maybe blind. So here we have a nice picture of Christian, my co-founder. He is really shoe addictive, so he is now aware about some new shoes. Then it's going into the interest phase, where you have to wake the interest of the user to maybe consume your product. And then obviously he is going over into the consideration phase, where he is thinking about himself, should I really use this product? Is it something for me or not? That's the demand generation phase, where a lot of, let's say, brand departments are always kicking in. We will come later on to the strategies a bit. When we are going over to the conversion generation, there your performance marketing teams are quite heavily working in. So typical stuff is evaluation of users. So they are considering using your product, but potentially there are better products out. So they want to compare. So price comparison sites are typical for this. Product comparisons, they are doing some research. Some people, if you're doing good marketing, you can skip people doing the step. But let's say the educated buyer, how it's called, they are at least doing this kind of step as well. Then the user is developing an intent to really purchase these shoes. They have to do the decision. There's a difference between intent and the decision, and there is a huge difference between making the decision and actually doing your action on purchasing your product or downloading your app. Exactly. Now we are leaving after the acquisition of a user, so the first purchase of Christian's new shoes, the space of acquisition of the performance marketing, and going more over to what we should do to keep the client and to develop the client a bit forward, so the relationship management. The first thing that you want to make sure is that the user is continuously purchasing your product. So buying the second pair of shoes maybe, or not only downloading your app, also maybe doing some in-app purchases inside of your app. And what you want to reach is that the user is becoming a loyal user, so that he is not only repeating buying shoes, but he is repeating buying shoes only from you, only via your product, as this example from Christian here. And then we are going more and more into the last phase. If you're really able to bring him to loyalty, the user, and developing even further, we are going into the progression phase, where the user is actually acting in your behalf to make sure that your product is then also referred to others. So in this case, to me, and making sure in the referral phase that the user of your app, of your product, is recommending this to others. Here you're often working with stuff like referral programs where they're getting even somehow an incentivized benefit if they are referring it. And here we are going into the next phase, the advocacy. So the typical, I don't know, Apple fanboy who is giving you the full advice why Apple is way better than every other product. We have it for sports stuff as well. So Nike, Adidas. If you're bringing someone to the advocacy phase, then he is, even without having any kind of financial benefits from it, recommending your product because he is proud of it and he is wearing this in front of you. Obviously, I think that's a quick overview about this whole map. You can all read this in details on a later stage. In the beginning, you have a lot of efforts of doing advertisements, so from TV, outdoor stuff, more online stuff, CRM stuff. In the end, hopefully the user is working for you to bring your users in. Jumping over to the next one.
So that's that rule. There's some really interesting stuff in there, and you've gone through, quite a lot of data. So we will be sending you copies of this, and we are obviously able to spend time with you going through it in more detail later. But there's so much in there, it makes sense for you to have the overview. So one question which came up, Raul, was when you look at those steps, obviously, some are more acquisition cost heavy, some are what you do within the product, and so on and so forth. Is there a particular step or stage that has a bigger influence on lifetime value or customer retention in your experience?
The biggest, most important stage. We can look on the beginning of the stages. I think the interesting phase is really the beginning of a user. So if you're acquiring maybe no users in the beginning, then obviously you can't do any kind of re-engagement. So I would love to jump over to the awareness phase a bit and giving you also some small examples of what you are doing in terms of advertising here. In the advertising space, so how we are communicating towards the client in a certain phase. So as I said, in the awareness phase, the user don't know about your product, so they have to be aware that your product is existing or your brand. And what you try to use here is some strategies like create some virality, stick somehow in the mind of the user. So sometimes it's super annoying or even controversial stuff. We will also have some nice examples for you. For this one, I can quickly play it. Hope you can hear it and it's not so loud to you. So that's an old advertising spot from Zalando back from 2012. So you also have to understand that a brand is developing over time. When the brand is not aware, when you are not aware of a brand, then you're mostly starting with this kind of communication. And if you're growing, you're having some totally different advertisements. So everyone who is seeing today, so in 2021, advertisements of Zalando, they are totally different from what they have been in the beginning. Let's have a quick look into it. Sorry, already too fast.
Der kapitalistische Konsumapparat hat eine neue Form der Unterdrückung auf uns gerichtet. Dieser Online-Shop mit Riesenauswahl und ein Überangebot an Marken.
Hey, hat hier jemand Schuhe bei Zalando.de bestellt?
Ich wollte es nur mal testen.
Die habe ich in ihrem Schlafsack gefunden.
Und die in ihrem Spind. Ich kann auch alles wieder zurückschicken. Der Versand ist da ja kostenlos.
Zalando, schrei vor Glück. Oder schick zurück.
Yeah, Not only because the brand is now way more aware to the users, this is potentially not anymore seen so often in the TV. Also, it's a bit old school in a lot of topics. But we all remember it, at least those who are living in Germany. That's to be honest, it was one of the most annoying TV spots for me, but it was sticking into my mind so that I was bringing this up now 9 years later on the slides. So you also have other type of advertisements in this beginning, so evoke strong emotions, empathy, especially around the winter season. That's something that's coming up quite often. Then when the user is going more over to the kind of interest phase, so they are already aware of your brand, what you are doing there, create mysteries, buzzes, so with teasers or leaks. So if you remember what is happening with the iPhone every year up front there are leaks of the iPhone, some little parts are known, so that people are building up already their interest in this phase, so that once the presentation of the new iPhone is there, people are there and watching this and potentially purchasing this. And then you have the typical reputation by even having some promoters. In Germany, Nutella is always advertising with the German football players. So that's a typical phase in this kind of area. But how to identify them, I will jump over to the next slide for Mike then.
That's that rule. Yeah, so let's just talk a little bit about that. I mean, the reality is that the customer journey has changed in many ways. So we sell B2B, and one of the things that they tell you now in any sort of sales school or any seminar is that the customers will really deeply research your product. Now that's true also in business in direct to consumer. I mean, the reality is that, you know, most of us have got one form or other of one of these smartphones, and if we want to know about something, we can find that information instantly. So it's really important to think about how it is you reach your target audience. So where are you going to find them? Where are they? What context are they likely to discover your brand? And when they discover your brand, what experience you're giving them. So let me give you an example. Most people would completely think about optimizing their product information pages, et cetera, on the website, right? But the reality is, for example, if you make TVs or if you make washing machines, you probably sell most of your products through a third party like Saturn or MediaMart or whomever it might be. So but does the brand also think about the fact that actually then the information has been discovered in a different way? So can they access the PDF? You know, if you thought about the fact that every single training video, every single piece of content that you produced could be skimmed very quickly on one of these, how will that influence how you would do that? Because people will research your product. They will know a lot before they come to you, unless it's a really easy purchase. So it's really important to make sure you think about how you touch those people, how they experience that. We did a survey recently about consumer behavior. And one of the questions we asked, bear in mind we're a marketing automation platform, so we enable you to send billions of messages if you want to, and billions of emails if you want to. So we thought that the thing that people say was most annoying was the volume of communication. What came back was that the number one annoying thing was when the communication was inconsistent. When the messaging was inconsistent, when the branding was inconsistent, that was the number one thing. So 51% of people put that as number one. The next most annoying thing was when it was too much, that's 17%. And next most thing after that was when the content wasn't really that good. So what I'm saying to you is that we found out that it's 3 times more annoying to be inconsistent than it is to send too many messages. So really think about how that you're delivering that information, the pre-purchase search, how that experience is managed, whether it's consistent with what they see on the website and what they do next. And we talk about this in terms of the micro moment. So next slide, please, Raul. So if you look at how people, this is kind of a very high level representation of the different phases people are going through. But all the way through, you can see that people access you in different ways. And the big thing that we now see is that people are complex, right? So before, and the Zalando advert sort of highlighted some of these biases, people would think that males think one way, females think another. People at this age think one way, people at that age think another. But that's not how it is. The way that it is now is that you need to be consistent about the way that you're talking to people, and it needs to be in a way that's accessible to everybody. And accessibility isn't just physical accessibility, but how the information is presented, because people have their different passions and they're complicated. So it's important for you to ensure that each of these moments, when they experience your brand through the various channels, that they're going to get the right information. And make sure you're covering all of the channels that you can, because people have different ways they're going to access you. So that's the key takeaways that we have from that. And we'll go to the next slide, please, Raul.
Sure. So if you're now we'll have a small look on the channels. So which kind of important channels are missing in my strategy. So often we are so tailored to a certain bunch of channels. Like I said, if you're a performance marketing person, you know you will be advertising on your SEM channels, on some display channels. But what actually I'm missing out is a more important question, to not have any kind of somehow breaks in your whole funnel of the users. So if you're starting with some awareness campaigns, but don't have anything in the middle where you are reaching the users before they're actually entering your app, and then you have an awesome CRM system in place, no one will convert to this part when you're only doing awareness campaigns and missing out the middle part. So it's important of looking on which kind of areas I'm missing out. We will quickly jump over to some of them that are exactly in this missing part of we are doing some awareness, and then later on we will have some good systems once the app is installed, that I can re-engage the user, that I can send them emails to reach again them. So one underestimated part here is the whole search area, so ASO for the apps and typical SEO, SEA for the web stuff. Here's also super, how to say it, competitive world. So if you're doing a lot of awareness for there is a product which people would like to buy, then yeah, people will search for it. But if someone else is stronger in the whole activities there, they would maybe get this area or getting this users from you. You are doing the awareness campaigns. Others are way stronger in SEA and search, so that they will fetch your users that you're generating and pull them over to their brand. That's something that you would like to avoid. That's only one of the things that could happen. Obviously, the marketing master map has a lot of more channels in. If I'm missing out anything, you can always ping me on LinkedIn or so, and we will add it here. Oh, I don't have it here in the slide. Oh, anyways, otherwise I will. You can show it on the full thing in the end. Then let's jump over to the next one.
Sure. Cool. So you want to go straight to the next slide, Raul?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect one here.
Right. Okay. So we're talking a lot about understanding customers, being able to sort of think about what they're doing in these different sections. That can be hard. Yeah. The reality is that technology will do most of this for you. So if you're using the right sort of technology, you can collect this data, because customers are giving signals all the time. The frequency with which they look at a web page, the frequency they look at a given piece of content. If you start to connect the dots of understanding that this individual, this particular device is anonymously on your site searching, and that you can associate that device belongs to Mike Barclay, then when Mike Barclay does eventually become a logged in customer, you've got lots of data, and you can use that data to micro segment. Because at the end of the day, whatever we think about personalization, and I know that there's different attitudes to privacy in different countries, the reality is that all the scandals we had with things like Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, etc., hasn't stopped people still signing up. They know we have data. The expectation is that we're going to manage that data well, understand to them and speak to them in a language that they understand at the time they want to be spoken to, with the right sort of content. So it's really important to be able to segment the customers into the different groups, but then to have that type of data on their behavior, which what makes it one-to-one. So if you assume that both Raul, Paul, and I all like Formula One, and we all watch different things, but there's going to be elements of what we watch, what we're interested in, that's going to make it different what you send to me. So if I'm very technical, send me the new tech specs for the new Mercedes. But if I'm really emotional, send me a picture of my favorite driver doing whatever he's doing. So it's about having the right segments, but also matching the data that you have to ensure you give that individual the one-to-one experience that they're looking for. Next slide, please.
Sure.
Okay, and this slide would take, there's quite a lot on it, but so I'll let you have a quick read. But essentially, because you're using technology, you're able to measure all these things, understand what they're doing, understand where there's friction, and that friction can help you to ensure that they do pass through your web property properly, and they do actually get to the point where they purchase from you and enjoy the experience. For me, a classic example of doing it badly is when I'm searching for something, I land on a website, and the first thing is a page takeover saying sign up for my newsletter or for 15% off. I don't know that I like you yet. So why are you asking for my details? Yeah. Think about when you're asking for the information, and you'll get better data. And things like onboarding journeys have a big impact on, particularly things like financial or anything like that. Ask somebody for their bank details before you tell them what's good about the product. They're probably going to drop off. So there are lots of things that we can do to optimize that journey, to make sure you're being relevant and you're ensuring that the customer comes out at the end. So let's go back to you, Raul.
Thanks a lot. Then let's have a look on which kind of technologies can support our marketing activities to actually achieve tracking this. So obviously, one of the most important things for me, at least, is once we have lead the users from the acquisition phase over through to the app, and they are installing the app and using them. Then for me, always the CRM systems are kicking in to support the user during the whole phase of the end of the user journey, even if it's then only the beginning of your client work together. Here, deep linking obviously is an essential technology that you should have in place. And your customer relationship management should work also with deep links. Additional to this could be a progression engine, so a system that is creating vouchers for you, so that you can even send over kind of individual messages with some individual vouchers to the users. So based on what you have tracked before, like if you're noticing this is a super loyal customer, then you want to reward them in a different way than someone who is maybe only coming always there when there is a new voucher, the typical voucher seekers. So that are some of the technologies that are here important. Obviously, in each step, you will need some different ones. You want to understand in which phase you need a certain technology and how to prevent to overload your developers with certain things. Some of the technologies you have to implement, some of them you don't have to implement. So into side of your app, so that will help you. Let's jump over to the next one. Here are the channels. Maybe we'll have a look on the technologies on a later stage. Here to have again the channels, but I think we can then jump over to the last one, going over to Mike.
Cool. So while you were talking there, a question popped up from the audience, which was, how long should I wait before using technology to engage with my customers? It's a big question, and it's a good question. Yeah. So it depends on what your engagement you're asking for. So if you're asking for a customer to give you something like sign up, give you my details, yep, then you want to ensure that they have had a meaningful engagement with a product of some description. So have they scrolled at least 3 pages? Have they dwelled on a given product? Have they clicked through to check a size? They are then interested, because if I click through to check a size and you send me a message going, if you sign up, we can let you know when we get more of these in stock. That means something to me. But when I first land, it doesn't. The flip side is, if you're using technology which allows you to target people and optimize a website itself, you can engage with them electronically at the minute they come on. You can make sure that the people who only ever buy sports shoes, when they land, they see a sports shoes landing page, or they go straight to the sports shoes section. So it really depends on the communication you want. And again, context is everything. So back to the question about how we make a brand ambassador out of your customers. And again, it's about thinking about your customers the way you think about yourself. If I have a favorite brand, send me 10% off doesn't make me love the brand more, right? You know, general net marketing doesn't make me love the brand more. I want you to treat me special, make me feel special. So why don't you give me a preview? So you know the set Black Friday sale starts on the 31st, and I get to go and look at the thing that's on the 28th. Why don't you and somehow make my profile look different? All these things. And it sounds small, but you know, airlines have made a fortune about giving you different color cards based on how much you spent with them. Whether you're a silver card and you get to go to the front of the queue, or a gold card and you actually get a cup of coffee. But the point being is, these things matter. So think about how you engage your brands. Give them the opportunity to share. You know, I've seen many brands make more money at the advocates by making it really easy for them to share on social than I've seen brands who give points, because the points really aren't that important. But they've got the opportunity to say, hey, I'm a brand ambassador for XYZ. So think about that. Think about the real world examples of how you show an emotional connection to your customers, and ensure that when you speak to your customers, you're speaking to them in the right language. So use all that data that you have to ensure you talk to them on a one-to-one basis, and that's the best way to drive people up the value staircase. So back to you, Raul.
Awesome. So I think one more slide. So back. So here now you have everything again in an overview of the marketing master map. To summarize a bit the whole thing, our goal was really to inspire you with this kind of map, to find new things that you should that you can apply, and making sure that you're not losing any kind of user doing it, and also knowing, like Mike said, connecting with the user in the right way, to giving you all those techniques, some of the techniques in hand. Obviously, we are not having a 100% match on all advertising strategies that are out there, but we try to cover as much as possible to add there. If you, as I said, we are improving this constantly. Our approach is in the end to have really a holistic marketing overview for you, where you always can look on and you can apply it in an easier way in the future, independent on in which department you're working. It will also make way more fun to work with others together if they are understanding where their main areas are, where your main areas are, and how you can work together on developing a user through the different steps. Most times departments are a bit disconnected from each other, only caring about their interests and not looking on the user itself, how they are behaving, how they are feeling in each of the steps. Perfect. So, and we also will have something for you. So obviously from our side, the marketing master map, which you can reach under our domain to download it. And Mike, you have your customer lifecycle marketing campaign guide, which you also briefly talked about.